Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking some seriously expansive cosmic lore. We're going to dive right into the core concepts of Ryuho Okawa's texts with a major focus on the Descent of Elohim. Whether you're already familiar with these teachings or hearing about them for the very first time, the narrative we're looking at today is incredibly intricate. It blends ancient space battles, the origins of morality, and a modern spiritual call to action into one massive timeline. Our goal today is to map out this 150 million year history step by step. We want to see exactly how the source connects our deep cosmic past to the intense global crises we're facing right now. Here's what we're covering today. First step, the essential cosmic sequel. Then, Earth's hidden space history, the origins of hell, the teachings of Elohim, and finally, a new Earth genesis. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the essential cosmic sequel, a cinematic key to today's confusion. We really have to start by understanding how the author positions this material, because it's not just presented as a casual history lesson. The texts serve as the foundation for an animated movie adaptation, and the source material, especially in its afterword, is incredibly emphatic about this. It states that following the previous film, The Dawn, this Elohim sequel is an absolute must-see. It's framed as an essential piece of media that you simply cannot afford to miss. Why? Well, according to the text, the answers to our modern planetary chaos, the extreme ideological divides, and global struggles we see on the news every single day are actually locked away in the events of 150 million years ago. To figure out today, the source argues we have to look to the distant stars. Moving on to Section 2, Earth's hidden space history, 150 million years ago. Let's rewind the clock way back. The source outlines that the overarching Earth god hasn't just been sitting back watching. They've physically descended to guide the planet during critical moments. This timeline shows three distinct eras. First, 330 million years ago as the god Alpha. Then, our primary focus today, 150 million years ago as Elohim. And finally, right now in our modern era, the 21st century descent as El Cantare. This reoccurring cycle of divine intervention is the structural backbone of the entire narrative. So, what on earth, literally, was going on 150 million years ago that required Elohim to step in? The text describes Earth back then not as a primitive wasteland, but as a vibrant, complex, cosmic melting pot. You had extraterrestrial visitors from various star systems integrating with Earth's environment, plus the diversification of reptilian species. But, with so many totally different alien cultures, technologies, and philosophies cramming onto one planet, friction was basically inevitable. The source explains that these fundamental differences in values, like how to live, what to prioritize, eventually sparked a massive cosmic conflict right here in our solar system. To make sense of this conflict, the text breaks the participants down into distinct factions. On one side, you've got the invading or destructive forces, mostly linked to star systems like Magellan and Centaurus. On the flip side, stepping up as the Earth defenders, were forces from Pleiades and Vega. The text portrays this as a literal space war, fought over the very future of the planet. It wasn't just physical ships blasting each other, it was a huge clash of cosmic ideologies. But before we delve into the spiritual fallout of these massive space wars, the source material throws in a truly surprising detail. A fascinating pop culture crossover that you definitely wouldn't expect to see in a book about ancient cosmic theology. Seriously, what does comic book legend Stan Lee have to do with this? Well, the text actually includes a transcribed spiritual interview with the guardian spirit of Stan Lee. And his spirit makes some pretty incredible claims about his past lives. He says that in the ancient days of Earth, he wasn't just the biblical figure Abraham, he was also a creator god in Japan. As he says in the quote, he claims to have been the god of volcanoes, who helped design the Japanese islands, specifically calling himself the god of Mount Fuji. It's a really striking moment that shows how the author weaves recognizable modern icons into this vast ancient mythology. It really keeps you on your toes. Section 3. The origins of hell, the birth of the underworld. So, what happens after a massive interstellar war on Earth? According to the source, it led directly to the origins of hell. But here's the crucial point. In this lore, hell wasn't created on purpose as some fiery torture chamber right from the start. Instead, the text argues that the creation of hell was actually a direct consequence of free will and diversity. Because Earth was hosting humans and extraterrestrials with wildly different ways of thinking, some constructive, some incredibly destructive, a natural boundary just began to form in the spirit world. Basically, when you allow diversity of thought, you inevitably allow for negative, harmful thoughts too. Because of all this, the source defines hell as a necessary lower spirit realm. As these various cosmic entities made destructive choices during and after the space wars, they started losing what the text calls their qualifications as children of God. They simply couldn't comfortably exist in the higher, harmonious realms anymore. So this lower dimensional space naturally emerged to accommodate those fallen values. It was essentially a spiritual side effect of a very, very chaotic era. Section 4. The Teachings of Elohim, Establishing Good and Evil. This suddenly emergent lower realm created an absolute existential crisis for the planet. A divine intervention was required to set things straight. So, to combat the hellish values spreading across Earth, the god Elohim descended. The primary mission here? To establish a stark, undeniable standard of right and wrong. The text heavily emphasizes this duality. Elohim drew a hard line, contrasting light, goodness, and heaven against darkness, evil, and the newly formed hell. It was all about creating a definitive moral compass for a planet that was totally lost in a gray area of cosmic diversity gone wrong. In fact, the source points out that the very name Elohim translates to light or God's light. The entire core of Elohim's teaching was exactly that, shining a light of justice, compassion, and faith to cut right through the darkness. It was meant to guide people, both the native humans and the alien immigrants, back to the right path. Ultimately, Elohim is described as a protector. By establishing the absolute value of justice and teaching a strict difference between good and evil, Elohim basically fortified the planet. The text asserts this wasn't just philosophical, it was an active spiritual defense against those malignant, invading cosmic forces we talked about earlier. By defining these spiritual laws, Elohim created a much-needed pathway, a literal lifeline, connecting the Earth back to the heavenly realms. Which brings us to Section 5, A New Earth Genesis, the 21st Century and El Cantare. So how does this 150-million-year-old story apply to us right now? The author strongly insists that this history is absolutely not just in the past. To solve today's global confusion, the wars, the political strife, the polarization, the world absolutely must know the truth of this Genesis god, Elohim. The text argues that humanity has forgotten that crucial dividing line between good and evil, heaven and hell, that was established way back then. Remembering it is presented as the only way to navigate the chaos of the modern world. In a really critical excerpt from the book's Afterword, the author drops a massive revelation. Because the world is in such disarray, the Earth God has descended for a third time. The source states that we are currently living in the era of this third descent, with the guiding consciousness now known as El Cantare. The text is super clear about this. This information needs to be known globally because it marks the dawn of a completely new era for humanity. The teachings being delivered today are described as the Law of El Cantare. According to the text, this law is the righteous path forward. It represents a brand new Genesis for Earth, picking up right where Elohim left off. But it goes a step further. The source states these teachings are specifically designed to be the path that safely opens the door to our impending space age. It's all about preparing humanity spiritually before we physically venture back out into the cosmos, where this all began. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought, based on the source material we've explored today. As we stand on the brink of our own space age, facing immense global challenges, the text asks us to look back in order to look forward. Will humanity embrace this proposed new cosmic genesis, or are we destined to just repeat the chaotic interstellar mistakes of 150 million years ago? It's a massive, sweeping narrative that for sure gives you a totally different lens to view our place in the universe. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the cosmos.